Please go up to the table, give us your name and address.
My name is Rebecca Polster. I live at 525 Meadow Road. I wanted to query about new subdivisions that might be planned for Durham outside of Ruby Road, or Swamp, whatever that's called now.
Okay.
And if anything had come before you guys, or if there were rumblings, and how the town of Durham is handling this.
Never speak to rumblings. The only one that is before us actually been submitted is Ruby Farmview, I believe, which is on Ruby Lane off Swamp Road.
Right, okay, so that was the only one.
That's the only one.
And then, forgive me, because I know that this was passed at the previous meeting, but how many subdivisions or homes are allowed to be put in within a year?
Okay.
Whether it's a subdivision, or I guess, how many homes within a subdivision are allowed? And then on top of that, what is the planning process for a subdivision to be approved by the town?
Okay, they can submit an application for as many as they want. Generally, it would spend 13, because any at a time, so more than 13 lots kicks in higher fees from the state and so on and so forth.
Okay.
If you're asking, there is in the comprehensive plan, there is a statement that says the town should consider a moratorium when they hit 45 lots.
Okay,
A year.
I think that's what I was.
Was that your question?
I think that's what I was leading to.
Yeah.
Is it, I'm sorry, John, is it 45 building permits?
I'm sorry, thank you very much, it's building permits.
So individual buildings.
Individual houses, yeah.
Houses.
Including
Right.
subs.
Including, yeah.
So that's within the subdivision as well as outside the
Yes.
subdivision? Okay.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you.
I'm sitting in my corner now.
Okay. Does anybody else wants to kill a few minutes here?
He just drove it. Should we table George until?
We can go ahead and do that. I do have one, and George is familiar with this, so I'll go ahead and talk about something that's has been talked about at some of the select board meetings, and that's something called codification. And codification is the codes guy has brought to the town an opportunity, or asked them to look into taking a look at all the land use ordinance articles, chapters, and looking at and hiring a consultant to do this. And so they would look at what do we have that's in conflict with state law inside the land use.
I think it's recording. Just trying to fix it.
I don't think we've gotten anything controversial yet. We'll keep going. And we do have a full and sufficient meeting. So codification, so they're talking about hiring a consultant. They did have a presentation. They would go through the land use ordinance and look at anything that may be in conflict with state law. So I don't know off the top of my head what that might be. George has done some of that in terms of state law, and then we've looked at things that were whether we are need work, solar as an example. The state just, if we didn't do anything with affordable housing, or we didn't follow state law, that would be an example. So they're gonna spend their time, go through our ordinance in great detail, and then come back and say, here's the things you need to work on. The impact here is that the things that you need to work on would come back to us and give us more to do, so job security. So more to follow that. It's a long way. They're looking for more vendors, so they have multiple vendors, and so there's more to follow on that.
I missed the beginning of the select board.
The code enforcement guy recommended, it came about, this is all public record, we came about with some concern about misunderstanding of what the sign ordinance says, and then having to go to an attorney to sort through that for us. So this would take a look at, are our signs in compliance with the state? And also from this consultant's perspective, do they make sense? Are they conflicting?
So focus on the signs.
Or, well, no, it's the whole land use ordinance.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, it's the whole land use
Okay.
ordinance. So signs, pick a chapter.
Okay.
That'd be the whole ordinance. And that's probably a multi-month effort, I think. But the company that gave the presentation has lots of experience, and so they can do it quickly. And
But right, they gave an estimate of the cost of that, but it's a possibility that it could exceed the limitations of what the select board could approve without the town.
yeah, and I think the town manager said he just plans to go straight to capital funds. So the town board, with the town meeting would vote on spending the money. If that's, again, this is still on the road, but it would go to the town meeting to say, we'd like to spend whatever it is on codification. And it'd be easy, the ordinance would then be more easily searchable. They would kind of put it in a format that somebody had a question about signs, they could go in there and find it. As you know, some of our chapters, that you have to look at 3 of them to get all the answers you need to do a subdivision or do a backlot or whatever it may be. So they would kind of help organize that, so they could search roads, private roads, and find pull up the information they need.
So the cost estimate right now seems like it was under 10,000, which is when you wouldn't have to go.
Well, one of the comments from one of the board members was, I think I heard 9,999.
I guess that's to be determined. I think the town manager plan, probably outside my wheelhouse, but I did think the plan would be to ask for it as a separate article.
What do you think?
Please get the sound to work. By the way, you were a resident, right?
I
You are a
was,
resident?
I moved away and I came back, and my
Okay.
parents were.
Just want to make sure you came, because we do have non-residents.
Oh, yes, no. Lived here my whole life.
George, we covered codification, we covered, I think, the last of the committees, and I think you'd already mentioned 11th September, so I think we can move on to, is there anything else that I didn't cover?
Nope, and Devin is working on this.
The mics aren't working, but he's fixing it remotely.
Okay, I think we just need to move on.
Yep, that's right.
We got a full sufficient agenda this evening, so, you never know what's gonna come on, so please watch your language. Old business, public hearing on conditional use application for expansion of the leisure campground for 112 RV sites, 112 RV sites, map 2, lot 3,
Okay, so this will be a public hearing, and Ms. Cavalinger, I would ask that you, as an abutter, that,
I'm recusing.
okay, would you mind
Oh.
going away?
Oh, I have to go away?
You know, you can go sit in the audience.
You need to leave the table.
You have to
Oh,
leave
can I
it to,
just sit over there?
you may
Yeah.
sit in.
Oh.
Perfect, I'm out of here.
Okay, will do.
You don't have to go far, just go away. Thank you, Juliet. And the reason is she is an abutter to the property, so. Okay, the petitioners would like to come to the table, please. Introduce yourselves and address. And if you would, kind of give a quick summary of the project, since the last time you were here. The other thing I think I need to do is formally let you know that, let the records show that we did a site visit, to the facility, Mr. Lenoy, Mr. Hutchinson, and I, along with Mr. Thabarge. And so the site visit, has been completed, and thank both of you for hosting that evening, very useful. So, if you would, just give us a quick summary, there's a map, or your drawing is up behind you, just kind of, there's been changes since last we talked, and you can talk off of that if you want, or however you'd like to do it. That number, how many are long-term, just kind of some of the, flesh out the details if you would.
My name is Gwen Hewitt, 24 Leisure Lane in Durham.
My name is Ken Hewitt, 24 Leisure Lane, Durham Leisure Campground, Durham Leisure Holdings LLC. We have a discrepancy on the numbers too. It has for 112, it's only 40 as far as that goes. So it would be a total of 77 sites instead of 112, so.
Okay, that's good.
As we know, the original application was
Correct.
Oh,
112.
yes, yes.
Correct.
We
You have
came
now
down.
revised it to be
Yeah.
requesting 40 new ones?
Exactly,
Yep.
yeah. It's 40, I believe it's
That's
40,
accurate.
yeah. I didn't know if I had to fill out an additional.
Nope, you're
additional
good.
permit or
You're good.
from that, so.
So a total of 77, 30.
Total of
Good.
77
Total,
sites.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. They have, they don't screen.
Yeah, lasers don't generally work, but yeah, however you want to do it. And for those in the audience,
Go ahead and hold it, yeah.
You can be Vanna if you want.
That much.
Gwen, excuse me, if you go over there, everybody will be able to see it.
Come right over here.
So, color ones.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I believe that the blue ones right here. Those are the 9 winter sites. that we
9
have.
existing winter sites, yeah.
Okay. And then, the orange ones would be the other existing ones that we are asking to turn into winter ones, if that makes sense.
and by winter, you're talking about all year.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. And then, these right here are the ones that we have, these are pull-throughs, and these are just, summer ones.
Okay.
And for those, we are looking for April 1st to the end of March. I believe we have that one.
Yes, this is the key for the.
Oh, the key, thank you.
Want that?
And for those in the audience whose eyes are not as bad as mine,
Oh, okay, good.
the same information is up there.
So, yeah, so the blue ones are the 9 existing. These are the ones we're proposing for the winter. Yep, the orange ones. And then the purple ones are the ones that we're proposing to be open from April 1st to the end of October. And then Kenny did draw the water lines in.
So, hold up one second,
Yeah.
so all the 40s, the additional sites are just gonna be open from April 1st to October 31st. There's no winter, this, that, the other thing, the lines will be blown out, there's nobody staying in that whole section, that's all done.
Oh, so
For
the
that- for that
additional
area.
40 that we're looking for, we're
The
not looking
expansion.
for those to be winter, we're looking for those to be April 1st to
It's just the
end
existing sites that we have now.
the end of October, yeah.
So, plus the purple ones would also be April 1st through October 31st?
Uh,
With
Yes.
those, yeah, those, the reason why we separated those is because there's ledge over there, it's 1 foot to ledge, so it's impossible to put water underground, stuff like that for winter sites. So those will just be blown out with those, with the other 40.
Those are blown out in the wintertime.
Yeah.
There's
There's
1, 2, 6.
6 sites there, yeah.
And then all of these,
So there'd be
these
46 sites.
40 that we're trying to do as well. So these other ones, we are looking for those to be year-round. These are the existing year-round, the blue ones, and then the orange ones are the ones we're looking to propose to do that.
9 blue existing and how many orange?
21, I believe,
We
yeah.
have 21.
And I didn't count 21, nor did George this afternoon, so we were missing 2, and it may have been just hard to read off the copies, but
Oh, okay.
Oh, it says there's 19. Oh, 2021.
Okay, there are two smaller
So
dots.
there's 2 small dots, yeah, on
Okay.
there.
Yeah,
for
when
some
they,
reason
when they
with
did
that.
when they did the prints, they put those on as squares for some reason, I don't know why.
okay, I just never assumed.
It doesn't
So
say
little
site
tiny
on, yeah, I
ones right
understand,
there.
yeah.
So
So-
76 total.
I believe it's 77. I counted multiple times, it's 77 sites, so we have one site discrepancy on one of these things.
When I looked at this, the drawing you have with the red numbers on it, I couldn't find 35.
35 is a site we do not use, that's why.
But you're asking for approval of it?
It's already approved
All
site.
right, okay.
Yeah, it's already there, it's just in a site that's like, it's just, we got the electrical, it's just, you know, we tried to finagle what we had from before, we took out multiple sites, and that site's just not really used, but
But
it's
it's not
still.
identified on any drawings.
It's skipped.
No.
It's
yeah,
skipped, that's
it's
why
skipped,
the number is
yeah,
77, but there's only 76.
Probably, yeah.
Okay,
That
so
makes
they
sense.
just skipped.
We just skipped that one, because we don't use it, but we can put it on, that's fine.
Well, I think it is important, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, that's
Gonna need to
what,
know.
if it's get approved,
Yeah.
it's what you would be able to.
Sure.
So the winter, the all year ones, the non-total, and all that good stuff.
Sure.
So he's got the electric, the septic, and the water lines for all of that. So this is just all you separate here that we're looking for. Everything else, we're just looking for extended use, but this is all we need. Other stuff, so. And we cut down on the other stuff, hoping to hoping for it to be a little bit more compromised, we understand how to cut it out.
Yeah, it went from 207 to 112 down to 40, so.
Yeah.
Hopefully that'll work for
Yeah,
us.
hopefully that'll work for us.
We'll see.
So the request is that you're looking for 30, all year sites, and a total of 77, another 30 minus, so 47, summertime, for lack of a better term, sites, so a total of 77. And the window that you would like to have the summer ones open is
April 1st,
April 1st to
end of October,
31.
31st, yeah.
Basically, when the water freezes and that's it. You
Okay.
can't physically be open any longer than that, so.
The reason I ask is if it gets approved, those are changes to, what you now have for approval, so.
Right.
Want to
okay.
make sure everybody's written down that 10 years from now, everybody remembers or knows what it is, so.
Sure.
Okay,
And we are looking to put more cabins in the future, and that's not something we're promising, but it's something we'd like to do. We just acquired 5 cabins in one place.
The,
thank you.
yeah, thanks. So, I know you said 30, we're going to be approved for 30 year-round sites, but we have 9 year-round sites now,
So an additional 21 would,
additional 21.
I'm not sure, I maybe have missed it somewhere, but I'm not sure those original 9 were approved, but we'll sort it, at the end of the day, we'll sort all
We
that.
have it, I have paperwork for that, for taxes from 1998 or whatever.
Okay.
For that, but we can go with that for Donna. But I just wanna make sure that if we put this on the agenda for 30 sites and you guys say, no, I can't have the winter sites, I just lost my 9 year-round sites.
Good point. So it'd be an additional 21, I gotcha.
Cause then we're having problems now.
Okay. That's a good point, good, thank you, reminder. For the board, we'll go through this, I'd like to open it to the public, and then we can go through in greater detail with the petitioners after we close the public hearing. Everybody okay with that? Excellent. Okay, so if you all would step back, I will open the public hearing. Let me find the good notes that George gave me. So we're at the point where this is a public hearing and kind of explain the rules of that procedure. So at 6:54, the public hearing is open. So I just gotta read through this to make sure I cover everything on the rules. But before I do that, I kinda wanna explain where we are in the overall approval process on this particular project, if it gets approved. So the first step is that right now our ordinance has nothing in the ordinance that covers what they want to do. So we do have a process called a conditional use process, which is what the applicants have applied for. And so the first step, the approval of this, would be to say, okay, you can do what you want to do on this site, on the dates you want to do, and the sites you want to do it. So it's just basically saying that you can have an RV park with X number or not of winter, all year sites and so on and so forth. The details of what that involves, and they have already shown you water lines and sanitary lines and septic, proposed septic sites. That comes in the next step, which is the site plan approval. So the width of the roads, radius of turns, dead ends, the size of the sewer pipe, all of that gets sorted out in the next step, which is the site plan approval, which if they get approval, they file for after this. So with that, the public hearing is open. Does anyone wish to speak about this project? Please do. Thank you. So you're in a butter. Do your name, address, please.
Fran Kelly, 11 Leisure Lane.
Okay.
We've been next to.
Ms. Kelly, would you do me a favor, assuming that Mike's actually able to talk loudly into it?
Sure. We've been in a butter since they've purchased the property, and it's always been quiet, well-maintained. The only concern that we really have, obviously, there is gonna be a significant increase in traffic, would be some of the larger motorhomes being pulled out on that road, because it is 50 miles an hour. And I was just gauging it the other day, pulling out from Leisure Lane onto the road, and a big truck was coming over the knoll, and he was on me pretty quick, and I'm not a 40-foot camper. So I just am concerned about the speed limit there, and I'm sure you guys will address that, but that would be one of our only concerns. 40 new sites would be 40 to 60 vehicles. So increasing the traffic there that's a concern, just because
Okay.
there's so much. That's the only thing but they maintain a great campground, it's always quiet, so.
Okay. We'll address the traffic thing. Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing at 6:58, it looks like. And thank you for your comments. Okay, general comment, question. I guess there's two steps to this process. One is we will address the traffic issue. They do have a letter from MDOT, Department of Transportation, so we'll address that. Because now the public hearing is closed, can't think of new answers or questions. If you do, send them to George via email. Okay, and back to the board. Any general questions before we get into the step-by-step of, George, did you want to go over your comments?
Yeah, just to update the board on some new submissions as well as where we've come. As John mentioned, on August 16th, we did conduct a site walk, and your packet contains a summary of that site walk with some photographs of the different things you observed. On August 2nd, the board did have a lot of questions, and that even came up in a bit of John's comments tonight about what is the current legal status of that campground. And so I did review the research, or research the record that's available here at the town hall. There may be other documents available, but the official record of the town is that in 1986, the town approved a conditional use for the prior property owner, granting approval for 110 sites, and there was a sequencing of 40 units in the first year, and then subsequent the rest over a longer period of time. That decision was appealed by abutters. The Board of Appeals upheld the applicant's request and the planning board approval of their conditional use application for the campground. In 1987, there was a subsequent document that was signed by the planning board as well as the applicant that it had a provision that if any of the sites were abandoned for more than a year, the approval would lapse, and also that any transfer in ownership would have to be approved by the planning board. In 2016, the applicant, current owner, applied to the planning board for an increase from 9 sites that apparently had not been abandoned to increase by 34, or actually to 34. And in that review, the planning board found that and required that the applicants were to comply with the time limits specified in the ordinance, which are, I believe, May 15th to September 15th. The applicants, 2 of the sites on that plan did not meet the 100-foot setback, and the applicants applied for a variance to the Board of Appeals, and included in that variance request was a request that the Board of Appeals extend the time limits for occupancy. The Board of Appeals denied the variance on the grounds that there was not hardship and the availability of a piece of town property that would resolve the setback issue for 2 of the sites, and declared that they had really no jurisdiction to grant waivers on the time limits. In 2017, the current applicant owner applied to the planning board. They had obtained ownership of that triangular town-owned lot, which resolved the setback issue, and they received approval for 2 additional sites. And again, in that decision, the planning board reiterated that the applicants were required to abide by all of the time limits specified in the ordinance. On August 15th, the applicants revised this current application, as we just discussed, and they also included on their updated existing conditions plan a fall zone for the transmission tower. Since then, they have submitted the additional information, which included an updated corporate filing report dated 2022. They did submit the campground addressing and site numbering diagram, which we haven't looked at, but it's up on the screen. They also submitted an HHE 606, which is the state of Maine application for campgrounds. I'm assuming that's for the proposed increase. And then they did submit the color-coded plan that you just looked at with the applicants. Today, we received 3 additional documents. The first was a certification from some expert company looking at the tower in terms of its integrity, certifying that it met all required codes for towers, and it also provided the inspection record that has been done and periods for doing them. They also submitted a letter from Maine Department of Transportation, and again, that letter confirmed what the earlier email had said, that MDOT does not have a permit for that site, and they consider it to be grandfathered, and they went even, the representative also went on to say that he did not see that the proposed expansion of the campground raised any issues for the Department of Transportation. And then later today, John Talbot, the chairman, had received an email from the fire chief stating that he saw that if the applicants provide a water storage tank with a 2,000-gallon capacity with hookups for the fire department, that would satisfy his concerns for the fire safety of the project.
Okay. So now we get on to general discussion about numbers or whatever, and then we get into the individual conditions of approval.
I think it's worthy to note that on any agenda items that the planning board presents, all of the agenda and all of the historical information is on the Durham website. It's easy to find, you can go into the calendar and you can click on the agenda and you can scroll through all this information. It was very helpful, George, for me, certainly historically, to look back at everything that had occurred over the years. It made it much clearer for me, that's for sure. I really appreciate that.
Any other general comments before we get into specific conditions of approval? Seeing none, let's get into those. And the
John, just,
Let's not. let's
don't,
hold on.
it's on this.
Okay.
So, in your packet, I had updated the draft findings of fact to reflect the information that we had previously looked at. I've updated it for the information that we received today, and so this copy, which will be your decision document,
Even better.
incorporates those changes. Let me see, I've got some for the public as well. Okay, so I think there should be 5 copies there.
No, no, we're just.
Pass those around.
And while we're doing that, these are the conditions that we review, and what you see, as George said, the findings of fact that you see there now are his recommended, not necessarily the final version of it.
John, I actually do have a question before we move on.
Okay.
So my takeaway from what we just went through from historical documentation is, according to what George found, there was no record that there were sites approved for winter use, but it was, I think, the Hewitts said that they have documentation that says otherwise?
I think I did not, I believe the applicant did, so,
Okay,
Mr.
so
Hewitt,
Talbot, Hewitt.
do you have documentation that those 9 sites were approved for year-round?
We have a tax documents from 1998 saying they had 9 sites there, that are year-round campground.
Not sure that counts, but that's a part of the discussion, I think,
Okay.
and so.
Just wanted to make sure I was.
That is a good catch. Any others?
And so, for the driveway access, MDOT says they see nothing that would give them pause. But, so I know, I don't remember offhand what the rule is for a new home, what the average trips are per day in and out of a driveway, but adding 40 sites would, even if it's just 2 trips, is adding 80 road trips from a site on a driveway.
I think that's, go ahead, sorry, let's finish.
No, that's pretty much the end.
Two things, one is, George, if you were to comment on the tax assessment counting when we get there, and I believe that MDOT takes a look, they have a standard for campgrounds with X number of parking spaces, so I always hate to assume, but let's assume they professionally looked at it, and that they agreed, they thought that whatever number of trips that is. So, yeah, I can't speak to that
Okay.
specifically.
Just wanted to clarify.
Good question.
I can address both issues if you like.
Let you do it.
Okay. The first issue was the question of the tax document from 1998, which Mr. Hewitt referenced. We've not seen any document, none has been entered in the record, so I don't think that you can rely upon any document certifying grandfather rights on that basis. And I would further point out that the town assessor does not have authority to grant conditional use permits or to modify conditional use permits previously granted by the planning board. So even if such document does exist, it's questionable whether it would have any validity in terms of the legality of what's there now. Now, apart from that, as we've discussed in the past, the applicants are not asking you to approve those sites for year-round use, and if it's an enforcement issue, that should be handled by the code officer as a separate process. And so if it has any bearing on the impact of the project in terms of your deliberations, then you can consider those are being used on a year-round basis currently, and that might or may not affect whether or not they meet the conditional use in terms of the proposed increase. So in terms of the traffic, the typical single-family dwelling that most, the Institute of Traffic Engineers, they have like a 10 trips per day, 5 in, 5 out, on a daily basis. And so what typically they look at is most development in a town like Durham, the amount of traffic on the roads compared to the additional, say you've got the 13 lot subdivision down here, it really doesn't register on traffic impact modeling when you think about cities and the type of traffic that engineers really look at. The critical thing, I think, is the safety of the intersection. And on subdivisions here, whether it's a big or a small one, if there's a question of safety, what you typically do is ask them to get a traffic engineer to look at the proposed use, to look at the proposed, so it wouldn't necessarily be the volume, it would be peak hour traffic as well as the particular vehicles that are entering the site and leaving the site to make sure that, and you'd get a qualified traffic engineer. And that could be made a condition of approval for this if it is a concern, and you could put that as a requirement for when they come back for site plan review. You can request that they get a traffic engineer to address that safety issue of the entrance with the particular type of vehicles that are gonna be entering and leaving there.
And doesn't the volume really pertain to a Durham road versus a state road?
Yes and no. I mean, particularly in the case of most of the state highways, they are highways, and so they have a higher volume, they have higher speeds, and so it would be a factor to consider in terms of the traffic engineer's safety analysis.
Which if it was anything like the Union Church deal was, the safety guy goes to the traffic engineer and gets his opinion, so I mean, that's a good question, but the question is, are we okay with the MDOT saying it's okay?
Just to follow up on Tyler's comments in the MDOT letter, their total amount of sites differs from what's the applicants that presented. They're saying 67 total, and I think we're looking at 77.
77.
Yeah, that's not,
Be nice to know what the real number is.
yeah, I called him on that. I think you were on that email back to Dane. Yeah, and I questioned him on that. He called me back and he says, don't get caught up on the numbers. It's 99 trips per day in prime time is how they do that. So they go through all that rigmarole, and I said, it's not 67 sites. He says, you're getting caught up in your head that it's the number. And I said, yeah, they're gonna look at that and say that it's not right, because I did the same thing. I said, it's 77 sites, it's not 67. He says, no. He said, that has nothing to do with that, because they do, how many sites have you added within the past 10 years? And we added 9 sites. We try to get approved for 9 sites, so that the 9 sites or whatever sites we had before, they don't look at that. That's already existing, and then they go with the added stuff for that. He went on with this whole thing, and he said, if they have any questions at all, to give me a call. That's what they said. My number's are on the bottom of the sheet. You can give me a call anytime you want, go from there. So, I get the same point. Because I mean, I looked at it too. I mean, it doesn't say 77. I texted him right back. And he said, no, that's not that thing. I said, okay. And I said, I encourage you guys to call. They do. Yeah.
Okay, and we'll get to that when we get to traffic safety. Those are good questions, though. When we get to what we wanna do there. any other questions about numbers or whatever, and if not, we'll get to conditional use review criteria. Excellent, okay, so first one is public health impacts. The proposed use will not create unsanitary, unhealthful conditions by reason of sewage disposal, emissions to the air, water, or other aspect of its design or operations. And George has some proposed comments on that, or actually not
These are
proposed, but comments.
findings, these are findings that the board would adopt, and as I think you indicated earlier, John, these are drafts based on the submittals and the public process so far, and if you want to add, delete, or modify, you can certainly do that as a board vote.
Any comments on 1A through H, additional deletions, concerns about?
Do we want to read these so that the public is aware of them?
We can do that. And we're gonna take turns.
And we are.
I will start. Because all RV sites will be provided with sewer hookups. The applicant will construct a sewer collection piping system that will deliver wastewater from the new RV sites to one wastewater disposal field serving 40 sites, existing conditions plan dated. The applicant submitted a preliminary site evaluation by Stewart Soil and Septic, verifying that soils are adequate to support the proposed wastewater disposal system. The preliminary site evaluation indicated a limit of 22 to 24 campsites per septic disposal field to stay below the limits for an engineered system. The preliminary site evaluation shows 300-foot well exclusion zones required for the common wells used by the campground. The applicant submitted a hand-drawn layout of the sewer conveyance line to the septic fields. The applicant submitted a hand-drawn layout of the water distribution system. The applicant submitted a communication from Scott P. Temple documenting a flow test on a drilled well in 2016 that produced 28,000 gallons per day. And I would also like to say that the campground is required to be approved by Department of Health, I think it is. And so the applicant has submitted, and they'll determine before they license it, whether the septics and the water and all that meet their public health standards. Okay.
Not exactly.
That's HI.
Not exactly.
I didn't go for it. Well, I just didn't read the exact words. Okay. Oh, that's why somebody else could read these. Okay, so then he did, the applicant submitted an HHE 606 State of Maine Health Inspection Program license application for campground and event camping for 41 or more RV sites in existing RV park. And you already have state approval now for the existing.
Yes, that's in
Good,
the,
okay.
that's in the picture.
I didn't know if that was like further on. Okay, so the comments on the proposed findings, any other comments, questions on this?
I would make a motion that the applicant has satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with criteria for public health impacts.
I just want to make one comment about the health inspection license, that it has been submitted as part of this package, but it is not signed by the applicant.
Okay. Well, I guess, I'm not sure it matters, because he still can't open unless the state approves it. And we can certainly make it as it is a, can we change, I guess we have a motion, we have a second on the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, and now we can add comments. My thought would be, do we want to change the verbiage on the finding to the applicant must receive whatever approval of the HE 606, rather than just submitting it?
That would work for me.
I agree.
Okay, would you make that as an amended motion?
The amended motion would be under I of one of the findings of fact would be that the submittal of the inspection of the HHE 606 State of Maine Health Inspection Program must be approved by the state prior to additional work.
Do you have a second on the amended motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second motion. Any other comment? Good catch. And raise a hand, please. All in favor? It passes, looks like 4-0. Okay, I'll let you read number 2, traffic safety impact.
Traffic safety impacts, the proposed use will not create unsafe vehicular or pedestrian traffic conditions when added to existing foreseeable traffic in its vicinity. Findings. The applicant submitted an email from Tony Fontaine of the Maine Department of Transportation stating that MDOT has no record of an entrance permit being issued for this location. The email further indicates that the entrance is grandfathered per MDOT access management regulations as long as there is no change in use. The email goes on to state that the entrance predates MDOT regulations that went into effect in May of 2002, and no permit review would be needed to expand its use. The entrance is located on Route 136, a state highway that has regular traffic as well as trucking traffic. The applicant has stated there would be a slow increase in traffic due to the phasing and seasonal nature of the use. The applicant has provided no details in the internal circulation drives in terms of width or direction of travel lanes or on pedestrian facilities.
Are you using the paper version, which is updated?
Obviously, no, I agree.
Because it includes G, which is that additional finding.
Ventero. I'm not the only one who missed it.
The applicant submitted a letter from Van Terrell of Maine Dot dated 9/6/2023, verifying that the existing entrance is grandfathered from state permitting requirements, and the department has no issues with the proposed campground expansion using it.
Okay, any comments? We had a discussion about,
The only thing that looking at some of the signage that, actually, I think the state puts out, is looking at a gravel pit. A lot of times they'll put out a yellow triangle sign saying gravel pit entrance. And I would think that that would certainly bring it to the attention of people that are doing 50 and 60 miles an hour coming up, that there's a RV entrance coming up. And I think that would just, and it's something that we have all talked about and we have some concerns. There's one other example of entrances, and one that exists right now is at Bradbury Mountain. And riding over there, how with the campground over there, they have actually put those yellow markers that stand about, I don't know, 3 feet high in the middle of the road. So it certainly alerts people that this campground, and you use a campground, you got RVs turning in there, you got campers turning in there. And I'm wondering if that is something that would be applicable in this case. I certainly think the signage is, I don't know about the markings, whether the state decides that, or whether we can request it, and where that would go.
and off the top of my head, the different, Bradbury people are actually camping on one side, crossing to the state.
To actually get into
Get
your
a
car.
park, which is, I assume you don't have people doing that. I don't want to make this.
So I don't know the reasoning behind them putting those markers in the road, whether that's because of pedestrian traffic, it may be. I don't know. But I certainly think it would warrant having an additional item on there to have that, RV entrance notification sign. At least for, bring it to the attention of the people that are flying down the road.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to think of, because I'm not sure either the town or the applicant has the ability to do that since it's a state road. I don't even know if Durham could put a sign up. Would
replacement signs until we go through MainDOT.
And, would it,
I've been through MDOT to put campground signs up in various places. and-
why don't you slide back up here? We got questions
I
for
mean,
you.
it's, you know, it's good for business, they know campgrounds ahead and stuff like that, the more signage you have, it's better off, but, I did do that before as far as signage miles ahead, just, 2 miles, 3 miles, something like that, some people have that, and they wouldn't do anything, they said it was up to the town, and it was in Freeport, but I don't know if that's what I was asking, is if you guys do something like that.
John, can I address this issue again? Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, if there are concerns with the safety of the entrance, the board has the authority to require the applicant to hire a qualified traffic engineer that would look at all issues relating to the safety of the entrance in terms of sight distances, in terms of speed, in terms of signage, and you would really want to do anything like that with the recommendations of a traffic engineer, because there are liabilities and safety issues involved whenever you're dealing with those types of issues.
Hasn't there been a site there must have been a
That would be my thought, is maybe we, rather than request at this point that independent guy do it, old Van said he would be open, somebody said they'd be open to discussing it further to address, a condition of approval to say, okay, did you consider 40-foot trailers times 60, and just get a response from the state saying, and we could ask them to say, would you put out additional signage?
What would you recommend?
Cause it does sound like, to feel better, I want to say that a traffic engineer comes in, but I think based on that email, it sounds like it's been thought about, so I feel like it's just putting an undue burden on timeline things.
That's sort of my, feeling too, is that he's come back and said it's okay.
Right.
I would like to give him a call as well, just to ask him questions, but I don't think we can put a condition of use on, we make a phone call to someone.
Yeah.
No, I don't either.
The liability's off the town, I mean, MDOT's already approved it, saying it's an entrance and stuff like that, so there's no liability for the town at that point in time. And I wouldn't mind putting signs up both sides of the campground, I'm on board with that. If, I don't know how you could, we've done stuff in the campground, we had to lease the poles and all kinds of things, you had to, to put signage up, so I don't know if that's even a viable, a thing to do, unless the town owns the 2-rod or 3-rod road, maybe the, question for Calvin, if we own, 2 feet or 3 feet off of the side of the road, if we can put a sign there or not,
Yeah, I think that the state has a right of way, we're doing that on another project, and they have, I don't know what it is there, cause it varies, but a
Yeah.
33-foot wide right of way.
Yeah.
And there is no town right of way beyond that, I
Okay.
wouldn't think. I tend to agree about not making it a condition of approval, that we're happy with we trust in the state's professional organization, and having done this with Union Church, the traffic safety guy goes to the traffic engineer for no other reason to cover his butt and make sure that, it is in fact okay, that is the existing entrance. Certainly I would recommend you keep doing it, go back and ask the state if they'll do it.
Yeah, they're funny about stuff like that, I don't know why, it must be for that reason, as far as.
It costs money and it throws us confusion into
Yeah.
everything, that's Talon's opinion. So I guess, do we have a motion for those things that are here?
I'll make a motion that the applicant has satisfied the reasonable burden of proof of compliance with the criterion for traffic safety impacts.
I will second.
Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise a hand. It passes 4-0. Tyler, you are doing public safety impacts, please.
Public safety impacts. The proposed use will not create public safety problems which would be substantially different from those created by existing uses in the neighborhood or require a substantially greater degree of municipal services than existing uses in the neighborhood. And findings. The applicant has stated that no school enrollment will be generated by the project. The applicant has stated that no buildings are associated with the expansion that would require fire protection. The applicant doesn't foresee any need for increased law enforcement. The applicant has provided no information as to the proposed internal drive system to verify access for public safety vehicles. There is an existing transmission tower on the property, and the applicant has provided documents indicating easements exist for that use. The updated existing conditions plan 8/15/2023 shows a fall zone of 179-foot radius from the tower base. 5 existing campsites are just within the fall zone, while no new campsites are in the fall zone. In an email dated 8/28/2023, the applicant stated that a 2,000-gallon water reserve tank will have a fire department hookup. The applicant submitted a diagram showing existing street addresses and a numbering schematic for the existing and proposed campsites. The applicant submitted a letter from Crown Castle 9/1/2023 certifying structural integrity of the existing cell tower and records of inspection. The fire chief submitted an email indicating satisfaction with the proposed 2,000-gallon water source with fire department connections.
Okay, comments on any of the findings? While you are thinking, I do have a couple. I will start if I may. Okay, the B and C, I guess, about increased law enforcement and buildings are associated with the expansion that require fire protection. I will take B first. Your opinion, and no offense, but I think there are things that could burn and that people are gonna be living in terms of the trailers. But I also think that the chief did the site visit with this, and he said this is what he needs for fire protection, and the applicant has agreed to provide that. So I guess that somehow, George, if we're worried about what people think of us 1,000 years from now, we would say that we reviewed, that there are, in our opinion, structures, but that the Durham Fire Department chief has said that he can, he's okay with it if the 2,000-gallon tank goes in.
And that's stated in item G.
It is already stated there. So I guess the point being is that we didn't take your word for it. We talked about it as this town staff and planning board. Not that your word is not valuable. And then, for C, does anybody have any concerns about additional law enforcement needs?
Actually, George's research from the earlier, I don't know if we have differences between what laws need to be enforced in the 80s versus now, but had some pretty interesting discussions about law enforcement. I think after reading those minutes, I also feel confident that I don't think there's a need for increased police presence for the campground.
So I guess, George, you just, for 1,000 years from now, somebody say they really did pay attention to the, they didn't just take his word at it. Again, it's nothing personal.
So I will move that the applicant has satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with the criterion for public safety impacts.
I had something to add to that. We didn't go over the cell tower at all. Did you guys look at this letter at all for the cell tower?
Oh yeah, that was in item I in the list.
Oh, is it my comment to speak now for that, or? Because I just wanted to read this thing, this is zero, they request, the Crown Castle Engineering that the tower has a theatrical fall zone under the design requirements of the building code as 0 feet. Did you guys read that?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
The Crown Castle Engineering that I'm skipping in the sentences here, it says Crown Castle Engineering that the tower has a theoretical fall zone under the design requirements of the building code of 0 feet, meaning they don't have a fall zone at 0 feet. The tower is 179 feet, but they say that it's a building code of 0 feet as far as that goes, so just so you're.
Well, I think the the fact we didn't speak to it is that we're okay with what you've provided.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
But we specifically, under F, it specifically says it shows it falls on 175 feet
That was,
radius from the tower face.
yeah, that's what I put down there.
Right.
Yep.
I would go, if it's 179 feet, I would certainly go with that being where, how far it could fall.
And I'm good with that. Are there any other comments? I mean, I think, I guess we've addressed it, but I mean, if it's a case of, maybe it's a general statement that we've reviewed all of these and have considered them.
Yeah, it took me like 4 weeks to get that letter. We didn't talk about it, so I'm like, we should probably talk about it.
Lucky you
It
got
took
that
me a
soon.
lot, oh my gosh, it took me this is some work to get that stupid letter, I'll tell you right now. That was not even
We'll
funny.
make a general comment.
Yeah.
We appreciate all
I'm like,
of
no
your
one even
hard-
said anything about the
all
cell
of your
tower, that was
hard
some work. I mean,
We'll
that
move
was
on
some
from
work.
there.
Anyway.
Okay, so we have a motion, and do we have a second? Because I've lost track.
We got a motion, I will second.
Okay, thank you. Any further comment? I would, George, just like to ask that, the board considered all these things. Okay, no further comment. Please, if you approve, please raise a hand. 4-0. Brian, your turn. Environmental impacts.
Number 4, environmental impacts. The proposed use will not result in sedimentation or erosion or have an adverse effect on water supplies. Findings. 4A. The applicant has submitted a wetland, stream, and cursory vernal pool delineation report performed by Maine Land Development Consultants Incorporated. 4B. The report indicates that no significant vernal pools or potential vernal pools exist on the site. 4C. The report indicates that no streams are on the site. 4D. The report indicates the presence of a small vernal pool of just under 2,000 square feet that appears to be a man-made pond located between Route 136 and the gravel access road near the front of the property. 4E. The existing conditions plan shows a much larger wetland system located between the transmission tower and the proposed expansion that is not mentioned in the report. 4F. The applicant has stated that all sites are wooded and minimal clearing of trees will occur. 4G. The applicant has stated that future sites and roads will be built off existing logging roads.
Any comments? I have one, and I am confused on the location, letter E, the existing conditions plan shows a much larger wetland system located between the transmission tower and the proposed expansion that is not on the site. I do see on your site plan, wetlands. Can you, and it's on that drawing that is behind you, that is to, I guess it'd be the east, northeast of that.
Yeah.
Is there another one in the report that is not on there?
No, that would be the wetland at the bottom of where the sign is, at the beginning of the road. That's the second one.
I'll go back. Sorry.
You know, some pressure now, George?
No, not at all. Just can't get my computer to cooperate.
There you go. Right here is what the EPA, I actually had the EPA look at this stuff, and it's just actually the live roads and that's coming for that.
So
That's
that's-
the one you're talking about right here, but that's off of the campground lots at this point in time.
It probably should be forever.
Yeah,
But
that's
at
what
this
I'm
point,
thinking,
for
yeah,
our consideration.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Exactly, yeah, that's a lot.
Are there any other comments on environmental impacts?
I just want to comment on G regarding future sites and roads. On the south end of the property on the site plan, there's one dead end shown by what's labeled as site number 48 on the labeled plan. Could you move your cursor around?
So
please?
right above Gwen's head.
Yeah, exactly.
Right there,
Yeah, right
right there.
there, that dead end. Is that for a proposed
That-
future site?
No, that is just a trail. It's a beginning of about a 3/4 mile trail that goes all the way around, starts in, goes all the way back around to the other side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright. The only reason why I ask is because in our ordinance, we talk about not disturbing any stone walls that have been in place.
Yeah, that's open over there. Yeah, that is off by a little bit. There is open there, they messed up with the lots couple. So,
Okay.
yeah, but there is an opening there and the septic would be off of the right side of that. But yeah, I agree, I like the rock wall too.
What number site was that?
I should have put the numbers on the
48.
things.
48.
And just as a note, if, well, as good a time as any to say that, the final site plan may vary slightly from this when they go to do it. Now you're not planning to do anything to existing stone walls, our ordinance says that if you do anything to an existing stone wall, you have to rebuild it. So if for some reason you do have to take out a road width, you just have to rebuild that with the stones and make it look like a real old stone wall. Any other comments? I will make a motion this time. I make a motion that, flip it over, the applicant has satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with criteria for environmental impacts. Been moved and seconded, any comments? Seeing none, please raise your hand if you approve. 4-0. Back to me, I guess. Scale and intensity of use. The proposed use will be compatible with existing uses in the neighborhood with respect to physical size, visual impact, intensity of use, and proximity to other structures. Finding, the applicant has stated the area is characterized by residential homes, home businesses, commercial business, farms. The applicant has stated that the nearest house is 400 feet away. It is not clear if that distance from the property line, the existing RV park, or the proposed expansion. The applicant has stated that all RVs will be screened by the natural landscape. The applicant has stated that from 400 of a minute, 100-foot minute. I'm not sure what that's trying to say, 400 to 100 feet minimum property line?
That's verbatim from the application.
Yeah, it just states that we're 400 feet to a minimum of 100 feet from the property line, because we had to add the existing one to that as well, which is 100 feet.
Okay, I'm just trying to work on the English in my mind a little bit.
You want a visual, don't you?
I guess what I would like to have, I would have liked to have it on the plans that showed that actually. But I have another way of covering that at the end.
We have a print right here.
That has shows, do you have it listed as
It's
how
an
many
inch-
feet from the property line?
It's an inch per foot, and this will give you a great, big idea. This is the property line, goes all the way around, this is the expansion, this is what we have, this is the expansion right here. So it's an inch per foot, so you're talking, what's that, 4 inches, 5 inches from there, and you got from here to here for the property line for the house. I don't have a ruler, but I'd say that's more than 100 feet.
Yeah, for subdivisions, we're a little more used to having it show the
Yeah.
buffers also.
I see.
When we get to the final wrap-up, and Mr. Thabar just said they will meet all the requirements of the campground ordinance except, and that includes, minimum 100-foot buffer, 400 feet from the house, so, at the end of the day, they will have to build it. I guess I'd like to clean up, that, but okay, let's do that. How about if we say, it's stated that that there is a minimum, that there is 400 to 100 feet minimum from property line. And that's the campsite, right? struggling with English on this one. I just like it to read a little more clearly, so those people 1,000 years from now don't think I'm illiterate. No offense.
Which of the findings are you
D.
proposing?
No offense taken.
And
We're not
what-
gonna be around.
That's,
So you want to amend draft finding D to,
to state that there'd be a minimum, that the distance from the property line is 400 to 400 feet. I mean, if everybody
Isn't
else
that-
is okay with that.
isn't that what it says?
He just said the same thing over again. He just,
It says 400 of 100 feet.
Yes, the of, that,
Oh, to change 400
to 100 feet, I don't,
Thank
something
you.
like that.
Okay.
And then the other thing I think I would like to ask is that we also reviewed an F or whatever, or part of the is that we looked at his plans as well as the Google map. So that can be part of the or whatever. It's just if people look at this maybe 1 month from now and they say, you guys didn't pay any attention, you just looked at a bad print off Google, we can, the finding will say we did more than that.
That'll be F.
Okay, that works for me. Okay, so I will add, how did you say it, George, would you, we've got 1 through E, or D has been changed from 400 to 100 feet, and then F says,
In addition to the applicant's testimony, the board reviewed the submitted maps.
okay. Do we have a motion? Do we already have a motion?
No,
Did-
no.
I will make a motion that the applicant has satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with the criterion for scale and intensity of use.
Okay.
So, one thing that we,
And now we're open for comment.
one thing that we do for thinking of subdivisions is we always sign off on a plan that is filed with the Androscoggin Registry of Deeds. I know this isn't a deed, but it's a plan. If this isn't registered, or should it be registered?
Okay, so remember, this is a two-step process. You're currently considering the conditional use application. And this is a conceptual plan, not a site plan or a subdivision plan. So, when it goes to the site plan review, they will have more formal engineering plans, and I'd have to look at the ordinance to see whether or not that gets signed by the planning board or not. But that would be the stage at which you would look at that.
Sorry, we can't use property development survey.
yeah, it's open service, survey, it's registered, you guys have that one here.
Yeah, they submitted a
GIS system,
2016
whatever you
survey.
got going on. And it's not a subdivision, so
Yeah, I understand.
But
we're not registering the things, we're not selling lots off, it's not gonna be deeded out to people and stuff like
No,
that,
but
so
the
that's,
question-
that's what we would.
The question is, if the town hall burns,
I have it right at the campground.
So.
I understand.
I think what, at this point or sometime when we get to the preliminary plan, we have something that says you must record this. And that way it's in there,
And that's fine.
it just makes somebody's job a whole lot easier. Cause we're all gonna be gone well, you young people may still be here 50 years. Yeah, I'm hanging on for 10. Okay, we have a motion and a finding. Do we have a second? And comments? Any more?
Who made the second?
I tried to.
Okay.
I was supposed to-
So we did.
I heard you.
So now we have a motion and a second. Any other comments? Seeing none, please raise your hand if you approve. 4-0.
Okay, number 6, noise and hours of operation. Let's see, the proposed use will be compatible with existing uses in the neighborhood with respect to the generation of noise and hours of operation. Under the findings, A, the applicant has stated the office hours are 9 to 9 AM to 9 PM. B, the applicant has stated the pool hours are 9 AM to dusk. C, the applicant has stated the quiet time is 10 PM to 7 AM. D, the applicant has stated that the occupants are mostly seasonal workers and are very quiet. C, D, E, the applicant has stated there is no tenting. I'll make a motion that the applicant has satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with criterion for noise, and hours of operation.
I will second.
Any comments? I'd have one. You live on the property now?
Correct.
I don't know, enough that says, you know, that we consider the fact that the applicants live on the property and manage, control the operation, or have live on, even if, God forbid, you all go to Florida in the winter, somebody will be there to keep the noise down in January and February. Does that make sense?
So you would move to add that as a.
I move that there are people move, motion that they have that F to it.
So, hold on a second, so you're creating a motion that I have to have somebody on the property living there all the time.
No, you just,
You stated that you live there.
I do live there, but like you
It's
said,
not
if I
a,
go
it's
to
not a
Florida-
condition of
Okay,
approval.
all right.
You stated that people are there all the
Yeah.
time.
I'll second that condition.
Okay, so we've now been moved and seconded with my addition. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, raise your hand if you approve. 4-0. Right title or interest?
Right title or interest. The applicant has sufficient right title or interest in the site of the proposed use to be able to carry out the proposed use. The applicant submitted an agent's certificate identifying Kenneth P. Hewitt and Gwen M. Hewitt as company members of Durham Leisure Holdings LLC. The applicant submitted a 2016 annual filing report with the Maine Secretary of State characterizing the Durham Leisure Holdings LLC as a land holding company. The applicant submitted a deed of transfer from the estate of Harold Cochran to Durham Leisure Holdings LLC. The applicant submitted 2 exhibits for communications and access and utility easements along with a map showing access to the transmission tower. The applicant submitted a corporate filing report for 2022.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve, just read it. The applicant has satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with the criterion for right title or interest.
Second.
Any comments? Seeing none, please raise your hand if you approve. Brian, if you would take on the next one, please.
Number 8, financial and technical ability. The applicant has the financial and technical ability to meet the standards of this section and to comply with any conditions imposed by the planning board pursuant to subsection 7.5. Findings. 8A. The applicant stated that the project is estimated to cost $700,000, give or take, and the project will be financed from personal savings. 8B. The applicant submitted a letter from Bangor Savings Bank stating that the applicant has deposit accounts in excess of $675,000. 8C. The applicant submitted a receipt from the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. 8D. The applicant submitted a hand-drawn electrical distribution system. 8E. The applicant submitted a campground license from the Maine Department of Health and Human Services. 8F. The applicant stated he is using Maine Land Development as a consultant.
Do I have a motion? Or let's go comments first.
I'll make a motion that the applicant has satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with the criterion for financial and technical ability.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments? Besides mine. Can't stop now. There is a $25,000 difference between what they have, you know, the bank says they have available versus the estimate of $700,000. My thought on that is that you're going to construct this in phases. That's maybe the question.
Yeah, that was when we had that was, estimate was when we had the addition of 112 sites, we're down to 40 now.
Okay, so a significant
So that's-
reduction in
yeah,
sites,
that's-
significant, so we have considered the fact that there are significantly fewer sites and roads to be developed. As long as I'm on a roll, I will make a motion, well, we've already done that, so it's
Yeah.
moved, seconded. All those in favor with that change that we just described? Raise your turn, and so I will take this on. Before I read it, somewhere in here, I have, one of the things that Mr. DeBarge recommends is, as a condition, is what is in the campground ordinance now as conditions for approval. I will pass these around, and there should be one or two extras in the back there. So I will go ahead and read this. Upon consideration of the criteria listed in subsection 7.4, the planning board may by majority vote attach such conditions in addition to those required by other provisions of this ordinance, as it finds necessary to ensure compliance with those criteria and all other applicable requirements of this ordinance. Violation of any of those conditions shall be a violation of this ordinance. Number one, no construction to commence until the applicant has applied for and received planning board site plan approval for the project infrastructure. The project shall comply with all DHS requirements for wastewater disposal, public water systems, and campgrounds. The project must comply with all the requirements of section 5A through I for the campgrounds, which is what I just passed around. So sites 1 through 37 are approved for year-round RV and park model RV use, and the cabin at 33 Leisure Lane is approved for year-round use. Sites 38 through 77 are approved for seasonal use from April 1 through October 31st. Pool hours are 9 to dusk. Quiet time is 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And we can do a motion on it. I have comments about 4 and 5, because the numbers don't, 4 says we have 37 year-round, and I think we were looking at 30 total.
John, you may recall during the presentation, the applicants indicated that I think it's sites 22 through 27 are seasonal because of the ledge restrictions. That's not reflected in the draft conditions of approval, so we should update that for the more accurate numbers.
Let's do it so we get down to 30, right, plus the cabin. Do we
So-
know what those
So
numbers are?
Ken, can you state, as an amended number 4, which sites are which?
So, I believe it's 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27.
Are seasonal.
Verified. No, those are, so what were we doing now?
We're trying to clear, right now it says you get 1 through 37 are approved for year-round, but they're not. 22 through 27 are still gonna be seasonal, is that correct?
So the town, we're talking about town ordinances now?
No, we're talking about this approval.
Oh, okay.
This
Yes.
approval would
Yes,
take
correct,
care of
correct.
the question about.
Correct, yeah,
old
37,
lots.
I got you. So it's a moot point if we, I got you, yeah.
That's what we're trying to get, assuming it
Correct.
passes.
Just wanna have it absolutely clear for the record which sites are
100%.
seasonal and which sites are year-round.
Correct.
So it'd be sites 1 through 21 are approved for year-round RV park. 22 through 27 are seasonal, and then where do we go from there?
28 through 37 are year-round.
28 through 37 are year-round? Does that sound right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And
so
then,
it's 6.
then 38 through 77
Correct.
are seasonal? Okay.
Okay, so applicant, are you, this'll lock you in, so if
Yeah,
you
no,
miss
that's what
one,
I'm,
you
that's
can't
what I'm
do
saying,
it.
so we have 37 sites, so the 1 through 37 are the year-round minus the 22, 23, minus 6 sites, so it's 31 sites that we're asking for.
That includes the cabin,
The cabin, 33 Leisure Lane,
whatever it is. Yes,
yeah, that's already in there anyway, yeah, as far as that goes.
okay, but I just wanna make sure,
If we wanna put it in record, that's fine, yeah, plus that one, yeah.
if it passes, this will clean up that
Yeah,
the concern
the
about
big
tax
mess,
assessor versus.
100%.
Can I just make sure I get this right?
Please.
1 through 21 are year-round, correct?
Correct.
1 through 21 are year-round.
That's what we're going for. 1 through 9 are year-round right now.
You're going to have 1 through 21 be year-round if you get this approved,
Yes,
correct?
yes, correct. 22, you had it right, 22 through 27.
22 through 27 are going to be seasonal.
Seasonal, yeah. And then
Those are the ones that have ledge.
So we have, so no, all these will be year round as well.
Yeah, right.
So,
And then
we're getting confused because the campground is open for 2 weeks at a time, any other time. So it's, the campground is open year round as it is, for 2 weeks any other time.
Well, I
That's what
think
the
that-
town ordinance says. So what I'm trying to get my head around is, the year round would be these 37 sites minus these 6. So it'd be 31 sites. You keep saying 21 sites.
No, I'm giving the site
The site
numbers.
Okay,
You with us?
gotcha.
We tried.
Thank you for that. Well, I mean, I
Yeah,
don't
no,
want to
that's
get nailed
okay.
to the
We
floor.
wanna
Like,
be
oh my gosh,
absolute-
we just lost 10 sites, you
No,
know?
we want to be
Yeah.
absolutely
You
clear.
were correct with your numbers.
Okay, so
Okay.
sites
It's okay.
numbers 1 through 21 are year-round. Site numbers 22 through 27 are seasonal. Site numbers 28 through 37 are year-round, and sites 38 through 77 are seasonal.
Correct,
And 35 is missing still,
correct.
okay?
So 35, you're not gonna do anything with permanently? Or do we
There-
cover that? Or is
Yeah.
that part of the?
35 is gonna be, we're just gonna expand that into one of the sites. It's either gonna go on 34 or 33, because you just can't do anything. It's a tent site.
You may want to renumber for the final because
Yeah.
it'll be confusing.
Yeah, it's a tent site pretty much, and we don't do tents, so we're not gonna bother
And then, okay, so we've covered this campsite numbers. What we've not covered is the length of stay. Did you, right now, the ordinance says, somewhere, I didn't keep the full copy of this, what does the ordinance say about the length of stay? Yeah, it's, you don't have to borrow that. A time limit is the ordinance, this is the ordinance, a time limit is placed on the occupancy of any one camping space on a continuing basis as follows: 12 weeks for the period May 15th to September 15th, this could change, approved April 1 to October 31st of each year, and 2 weeks of all other times. So what this now says is that on October 31st, they can only be there 2 weeks. You've not asked for, what are you asking for length of stay? Right now, it's 90 day, 12 weeks, so 4 months, in the summertime.
You wanna come sit up there for a moment?
Don't get greedy, please.
So what's happening with the seasonal ones, the ones that we blow out in the wintertime, April 1st to the end of October is all we're looking for. We're not looking for anything beyond that because we do have to blow the lines out.
He's talking
Is
about.
And then,
But
The
let's just
winter
stop with that for a second. So the
Okay.
seasonal, the summer seasonal ones,
yes.
right? If we say all of this applies
They
except.
can't be open year-round because.
I got you,
Okay.
but
yeah.
what it says is they can only be occupied 12 weeks,
Yeah,
the seasonal ones.
so we're looking for as long as you'll allow us to do that, to have them open from, we would like it to be from April 1st to the end of October.
Understand that, but no one RV can be there more than 12 weeks, the way I read this.
I guess we're looking to see if we can get that changed. Because then we just have to move the camper.
I guess I'm confused on the question. Are you asking us the question, or are you
I'm
telling
trying to
us?
clarify what is being approved, and what I'm understanding,
Yeah,
your line of
exactly.
questioning is, okay, you're asking to be allowed to have occupied sites in the seasonal, sections from April 1st through October 31st. So that says, after October 31st, those sites cannot be occupied until April 1st.
Correct.
And you're good with that?
Well, we wanna open up those other sites for year-round.
Right, but that's not what they're
use.
talking about.
We're just
right
talking
now.
about the
We're just talking
seasonal
about the,
sites.
yeah, the summer ones, yes, correct.
Is
Yeah.
that
Okay,
clarify
but
it?
the way the ordinance reads.
Right.
Is 12, so
We're-
what you're
we're
saying
aware.
is that if they move into a summer site
Yes,
on the 1st of April, they could
Mhm.
be there for 7 months.
that's what we're asking
That's
to
what
do,
you're asking.
yes, yeah.
So the intent of the draft is following what they have submitted and what you've discussed, so, draft finding, or, excuse me, condition of approval number 3 says they have to meet all requirements of 5.8A, A through I for campgrounds, except, we should add, except for the following, which is those time limits.
Yes, because I get the dates that you want to, the lot campsite numbers I get. Maybe others may have a different opinion. But what I'm not sure about is if can somebody, with your request, do you expect somebody to put a trailer and be there for 12 months? What do you want to limit it to?
This must be, I'm assuming for the year-round ones that you're,
Yeah, let's,
for the, okay, so for the year,
for the summer ones, let's go back to that.
okay,
What you're asking for, if I understand this
it would
correctly,
be 7 months.
is a maximum of 7 months,
Yes.
whatever number of weeks that is. So the whole 1 April to
Yeah.
October 31st period, the
Yes,
same person can stay in that campsite
Right.
through that period.
yeah, we're getting a lot of calls, somebody sold or bought a house, things like that, and so they're, they're not looking to live there, that's not what we're going for, that's not what this is for. But it is tough when somebody wants to stay more than 4 months, and you won't have to move them or, do 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, that we're looking.
I will give you my concern about that after
Okay.
we're done.
Okay.
That's I understand what you're asking for.
Sure. Okay.
So all year, the 31, the cabin, and the
Yep.
30 trailers, RVs,
Yeah.
you are asking for,
Okay, so, tell me what we're doing now, how we're seeing that- so what we're doing now with the 9 that we have is, a 6-month seasonal. So from October 1st to the end of March is a 6-month seasonal, and the reason that we do that, we do not do monthly, is because people have to, when they come in, they have to wrap their camper with insulation board, they need a heat hose, there's a process. So we don't take transit, because if they're coming in, they're not wrapping their camper, they're freezing up, it's just on their end. We're all set on our end for winter, but they're, it's a process. So we really can't have somebody snowed in and then,
and I'm not trying to make this hard, but
Sure.
somebody shows up on
Yeah.
the 1st of April, can they, in your request, can they stay 2 years? If they wrap their trailer, and then they're on a winter, a seasonal, what are you asking for? I guess what I'm looking for is,
we're really just doing 6-month seasonals, and if somebody ends up wanting to stay another 6 months, we usually are like, well, what are you doing? Because we don't need this as a residence, so I guess we're looking for feedback as to what, you guys
Yeah,
think as well.
there's no primary residency there, so.
Yeah, you can't get your mail
You
there.
can't get your mail, you can't get licenses, you can't get this, you can't get that, so it's
I got you.
a lot of, yeah.
Yeah, well, I would like to define that, so I'll
Sure.
turn to the board and say your thoughts on, I guess, 2 parts. How long for the summer and then recognizing it could start at 1 April and end on 1 January. So what are we looking at for max stays and either total or whatever here? Because my concern is that, again, I know what you wanna do.
Yeah, but having it written in writing, so it
Have
doesn't
it in
end up
writing so that,
something. Gotcha.
someday I'm assuming you'll hit the jackpot, the lottery, and they wanna move on, and then the people behind you
Sure.
say,
We understand.
I only get 1 month, 12 months,
Sure.
a lifetime.
Yeah.
And I am concerned that people would, at some point in time, may make this a primary residence, whether,
Yeah, whether they want to, or yeah.
Right, that would be code, obviously code issues and stuff like that at that point in time, but yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I understand.
so I go back to the board.
So-
What are your thoughts on max days, if any?
Just to maybe summarize what I think is being asked for, is that seasonal sites, someone could stay at for 7 months, April 1st, October 31st.
For the summer ones, yes, yes, they could stay for, that's what we would be open for and what we're looking for, yes.
And winter sites, put a cap on 6, would it be possible to put a cap on 6 months?
Well, what we're seeing and what we're kind of, is that people will stay for the winter time and they will renew for 1 more season, and then they've either found a home or they've found what they're doing or their job is over. A lot of times we'll get somebody who's just doing road work, it's a single person, they're doing road, but they have a job, and they're even maybe 9 months or something. So I don't think they usually exceed a year.
So if we put a cap on year-round sites
It
of
would-
9 months,
it
and a
would-
cap on the seasonal sites at 7 months?
That would be the most helpful in what we would like to be doing and the clientele that we're getting, so that would be.
It's not really the year-round, I know, it's not a mobile home park, something like that, but you know, if somebody comes in in like November, you know, they can stay longer, you know what I'm saying? It's because nobody comes in, you know, we want them to come in April first, well, you know, people don't come in on April first. They come in April 15th, April, you know, May, June, July, or whatever, and they wanna stay longer, because they have kids up here and stuff like that, so that's what they do, at least until the water fly and stuff like that.
Some of the sites, as you know, we've just got cabins to put on,
They're
so
RV,
RV certified
certified
units. Thank you, and,
Came close.
so I did, whew, I was choked on that one. So what we're getting with that are traveling nurses, and so they're a 13-week contract. And a lot of times they renew, and they're only allowed to renew one other time. So a lot of times they are here for a 6 or 7 month period, and then they're gone. So there is a turnover with that. That's not like a rental of somebody living there. Those are,
What were those proposed caps that you just stated?
7 months for the seasonal sites and 9 months for the year-round sites.
Thanks.
I guess, because it sounds like that would, for the Hewitts and for the seasonal people, it sounds like that would be best for everyone, but is that, are those, what is our concern with the time that people stay?
I think people just making that into a semi-permanent, you know, concerns I've had is, you know, they move in and maybe there's nobody in school now, but, and I don't wanna insult anybody who's living in there now, but people are living in their cars, people are living in trailers, and they're doing it for long periods of time. And if you put, your question is, should we put a time limit on it and say, okay,
But there's no
9 months, you're gonna have to move, 7 months, you're gonna have to, you know, you can't stay beyond that.
Would the 7 and 9 month idea be too long for you?
Yeah, not for me, but I'll let others join in.
Well, you can always put it in the ordinance saying that there's no primary residency there, that would take care of all that,
Yeah,
If it's
I-
not a mobile home park, that would be a codes issue.
No, I hear what you're saying, but that doesn't do it for me, because I think that, again, I know that's not what you want to do,
sure.
but down the road, are there people who are, and I don't wanna insult, because people
No,
have to have
no,
a
that's
place to
okay.
live.
Right,
Yeah.
but that's.
But
that's
it's not
neither here-
necessarily
yeah,
a
that's not-
trailer in
Yeah.
Durham leisure.
What we're doing in the wintertime is taking up to 2 adults. That's one of the rules that we
Yeah,
have.
but he's thinking if we sold the place, what might happen for somebody else.
Okay,
Right,
gotcha.
so we're-
And for winter, I mean, I didn't know how, the number, we are looking for the 7 months for the summer and then the 12 for the winter, but I didn't know if that was the
Okay.
number that
We
you
don't-
threw out.
We
or-
can't get cut, so with
Well,
all
then
these
you're
things, we don't wanna
2
get cut
6
off with our 9 sites that we have, saying 9 months, oh my gosh, then we just lost our 9 sites. you know.
Yeah, there's still an argument whether you have the nice.
Right,
Correct.
right, yeah.
So-
So, so what happens is people do a 6-month seasonal for the winter, and a lot of times they will renew for 1 summer. So that does equal 12 months,
Okay.
is what has that. That's
Sorry.
okay, I didn't know if it was just something you were throwing out.
I think I was just thinking, like, May and summer, that's
It's a
maybe
May summer,
2
yeah.
months, not
Right,
6
right.
months.
Yeah, so a 7 and a 12, if that's what we're looking for.
Okay, I see.
Okay, so, the consensus is there 7 for that period, 1 April to 31 October, 7 months max, 9 or 12 months, the consensus on the winter. I mean, if you don't agree with it, then speak now.
I don't understand the reason why we're bending the rules here, and what's the process to veer from what's in our ordinance? Is this an appeals thing, or?
Well, it's a conditional use, so we have the authority to change times and other things, and that's the question, is that what we wanna do?
My feeling is that they've already shown that they've been doing it for these 9 sites, whether we think they were supposed to be able to or not. It's been happening and it's been going well. So if this is a successful business, and why, and there's already these arbitrary time limits put on for, I can't see a good reason or think of a good reason, why would we restrict a Durham business from doing that?
And Brian, just to clarify, Durham has adopted as flexible a zoning as I've ever seen in 40 years. And, you know, there's a reason for that. The town doesn't want to designate certain areas as commercial and other areas as residential. It's mixed everywhere. So basically, the ordinance was drafted to say, okay, these are the permitted uses, these are the conditional uses, and anything else can be considered as a conditional use. So this is not a campground, it's not a mobile home park, it's somewhere in between. And so the Durham ordinance has been drafted, not as an appeal of that standard, but as saying, that doesn't fit into either box, so we're gonna look at it specifically as a conditional use, and you have authority to do that.
I guess I'm not sure if I'm struggling with this or not, but how many of these sites, the RV or what cabin do you own? When you say all these seasonal people coming in and out, they're bringing their own RV, are they renting from you? Or
We only own 5 cabins
Yeah.
and RV certified units, and then the rest, people bring their own campers. And we do have a limit on the age of it, so we don't have to rent it.
There is 7 of them on the property. Is that what you were counting when you walked through? Because my mother had, yeah, my mother has one, and then her parents have a unit as well. Because we were, you know, debating whether we should build a facility or get these cabins, and then COVID hit, and I don't like to blame stuff on COVID, but. And then, so they bought these units, we checked them out, we liked them, I built the building instead, and then we bought the units. That's how that came
Okay.
across. So just give you a little background.
Yeah, it also helps with the traffic part of it, right? Like, if you owned.
Oh, oh my gosh,
Yes,
I'd be, yeah.
absolutely.
If I hit
It's
the
our
mega
goal.
bucks,
It's our
I'd buy
goal.
20 of them, yeah.
So
Yes,
that's-
and by
yeah.
doing seasonals, what's happening is they're coming in and, you know, they are requesting for the longer stays, so they're coming in and they're not in and out with the campers. We really don't have a lot of transit. It's mostly seasonal, so they're coming in and their car will come in and out, but not the RV.
We would like to, you know, obviously, we have more money from what we did before, because we cut the sites way back, so, you know, obviously, we're gonna restructure and stuff like that, and, you know, see how much it actually is gonna cost us to build it, and, you know, hopefully, we'll be able to buy more units at that point in time. That's why, you know, I remember you asking me, why did you cut it back, why did you cut it back? Well, that's the mentality behind it, is maybe getting more of the certified units to be able to be in there instead of having, you know, more traffic.
What happens with the campground is you have to
Traffic
make
as far as
everything in
people
4 months, you know, you really, the kids are only out of school for really 3 months, and so people go, how come the price is going up? Well, you're getting taxed and charged and all these other things all year, and then you have 4 months or 3 months to be paying for it, so it is, we're just trying to find a way for.
Good, I kinda like to just cut the, we still have another project after this, so, if there are any other, thank you for the explanation, there are any other comments, or are we ready for, we have a motion and a second, are we ready? We did modify this, I think, a little bit, George, could you just kinda cover what?
Just that
changes we-
last part, okay, so I already talked about the changes to number 4. Sounds like you're adding a number 8, which is the maximum length of stays. And you've discussed year-round either being 9 or 12, and seasonal being 7-month maximum. So that's
So
what you're
we
trying
seem
to-
locked on seasonal at 7, do we have a preference, 7 and 9? 7 and 9?
I have no problem with 12.
Okay.
I don't see why 3 months would make a difference.
I guess I need a motion, one way or the other.
Is adding verbiage to this something we motion and vote?
Pardon me?
Yeah, you would add another finding, number 8.
I will make a motion that we add number 8, which says seasonal sites 1 through whatever the numbers were, and et cetera, seasonal sites are 7-month max stay, and year-round sites are 12-month max stay.
Do I have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second, any further comment? If you approve, please raise your hand. 4-0. And I think we are done with, except a couple of comments, which is, your next phase is preliminary.
You just amended to add number 8, you still have to vote on the package of them with those amendments.
So the entire motion for 7.5
A.
approval. That was just to
I
add. That was to add number 8.
Oh,
That
I'm
was just
sorry.
add number 8.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the entire package?
I will make a motion to apply the following conditions of approval to the permit for conditional use.
Thank you. You gonna read them, or just assume we know them? I mean, I'm good with that.
I'm gonna assume we know.
Previously stated.
As previously
As
stated.
previously stated.
And as amended.
And as
amended.
Number
stated
4,
and
number
amended.
4, and number
I'll
8.
second that.
It's, okay, it has been moved and second. Further comment? Raise your hand if you approve, please. 4-0. Are we finished now, George?
We are.
Okay, so the next step for you all is preliminary plan. So take a look at the requirements for that. It's not necessarily hand-drawn. Work with the chief on road and Calvin on road, private roads. We have standards for those, turning radius. So, you know, please, when you go to submit that, make sure you've complied, or if you need a waiver, please get upfront.
Where would these be?
It's actually the site plan review.
For a subdivision site plan review?
No, it's commercial site plan review.
Oh, we changed the verbiage on it? Was it this?
You will
is
need
it
to
the same-
file a site plan review application for the construction.
Oh my gosh.
So if you don't mind, I'll ask you to move on, and George is available to answer any and all questions. Just want to make sure you knew that there is a step 2 before you start cutting down trees.
Yep.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate all
Thank
that
you
for the,
guys.
for the, length of stay and stuff like that. At least
Yeah.
we're moving somewhere.
Thank you.
See you again soon.
All right, that,
Thank you.
that does that. As Ms. Camplinger is walking back up, you come on back.
Come on down.
Come on, you may return. Okay, before we get into the actual discussion about the second item on our agenda, I do want to just, I need your approval or disapproval, whichever you elect to do. I just want you all, I have to disclose that COP Excavating is working on, or will work on tearing down my barn and rebuilding the foundation. So I consider myself a customer. I do. Look at George, we'll let George come back in. So the process is I disclose it and then you vote whether or not it's okay. How you vote is how you vote.
To keep you under the loop to see.
You may tell me to go away if that's your vote. But you have to vote to tell me to go away. Thank you for your patience, Julian. Okay, I'll continue on. George and I went through this afternoon. So I'm disclosing that COP Excavating is, I've hired them to tear down my barn at some point, and when the weather allows, and they get caught up in all those other kinds of things. So I consider myself a customer. I don't consider myself prejudiced on how I would treat this particular project. So I've disclosed it, and our bylaws and MMA and George, I think we all agree that I've disclosed it. I need to ask the applicant if they're okay if I stay on the board, and then you must vote to say yea or nay. Please.
Question,
You may-
is he just tearing your barn down? Is that like the whole project? It's not like a bigger thing than that?
No, he's tearing down the barn, and then the foundation is collapsed on it, so we're tearing down, let's start first, an old dairy barn where the cows got milk, an old barn connected together, and this wall is collapsed on the old barn, and then he's gonna tear out some chicken coops and then reseed it, so yes, so that's the extent of it, so. But you won't hurt my feelings either way. So, is the applicant okay?
The applicant's okay with you staying on the
Okay.
board. And a question.
You're speaking for the applicants. Okay.
Yes. This is a sketch plan with no decisions-making?
That is correct.
Even though, so you'd have to recuse yourself, if the board votes, you'd have to recuse yourself from this process as well?
Yes. That way there's no, and so, you know, the issues on this are, I have no financial involvement with COP Excavating. I have no financial involvement with this particular project. One of the other checks is there a perception that you, hence the vote, that you think that I would not be, you know, I'd be biased one way or another in that vote, so that's kind of what you're voting on. I just declare now I have no financial interest in either Cop Excavating or Ruby Farm View.
I'll make a motion that John Talbot continue with the review process for additional lots for Ruby Farm View subdivision.
I'll second. Any discussion?
I can't say anything, so go ahead.
So we vote,
You
right?
do, I think
We
that,
vote. Show hands.
For approval?
Yeah, for approval
Okay,
of him
thank you.
staying on.
And just for the record, that indicates that the board has accepted the participation of Mr. Talbot.
correct,
Correct.
correct.
The idea being that
You didn't think
he
you
could
could
have
let you just
opinions
get
that
away
could
with
sway
it.
our votes in the future, even if he stayed on at the sketch plan part.
Yes, so I just want to I wanted to start off with disclosing it so there was no issues coming down the road or whatever. So, having done that, we are here to review the sketch plan for an additional 4 lots at Ruby View Farms. And Mr. Thabarge has put that on the board. And could you just kind of give a quick discussion of what it is they're doing there?
Sure. My name is Rick Meek. I'm with Teradyne Consultants. I'm the civil engineer for the project. Mike Kopp is the developer and landowner of the subdivision. The subdivision was approved in December of 2018. It included 13 residential lots for sale, and Mike retained roughly 10.6 acres of that property, being the 14th lot of that subdivision. The retained land is identified as tax map 5, lot 78B. Does anybody not know where Farmview, where that subdivision is located?
I think not.
Okay. Mike is proposing to construct about 700 feet of road intersecting with the existing Ruby Lane to create 4 new lots. Each of the lots would have 90,000 square feet of area. They would include 300 linear feet of frontage, and they would each have a minimum of 40,000 square feet of contiguous buildable area. A wetland delineation was done in the spring and a vernal pool analysis. The wetland delineation is shown on the concept plan or the sketch plan. No vernal pools were found, no potential vernal pools. With the road construction, we would expect some wetland impacts. So an NRPA, Natural Resources Protection Act permit would have to be filed with MDEP, as well as a Army Corps general permit. They may have changed the name, but notification would have to be filed with Army Corps for those wetland impacts. Based on the scope of the project, a stormwater permit by rule would be required with MDEP, and that would involve a minor application notification, basically, and some basic erosion control treatment of the site. It would be Mike's intent to treat the lots and the road with some natural buffers to the extent possible. Each of the 4 lots would be served by electric in the same manner as the rest of the subdivision. I don't recall if it's underground or overhead, but it would be in the same manner. Okay. Each lot would be served with a private well, and each lot would be served with an individual septic system. That's pretty much it. I'd be happy to hear your initial thoughts and any questions that you may have.
Ms. Kevin?
Yeah, do we have any printed anything, or is it just online that we have of the sketch? It's just that one sketch, is that what we've got so far?
Yeah, here too.
Okay, yeah, this is helpful, like.
Two meetings ago, I did distribute the hard
Oh.
copies of the application.
Thank you.
Just
Yeah.
It's, what page it's on.
Oh, and I think I have a hard copy.
So that additional piece is
That's
it's
old.
almost across from where lot one is, correct?
Yeah, and I don't know if you have a copy of the original
I could put the original, I've got the full-size
Yeah.
print of this sketch plan if you wanna see it.
Yeah, and also the previous one's helpful too.
Page 75 in the online
Okay.
packet.
I think it's also, he has
Yeah,
a
I
slide
can-
with a picture.
Oh, okay.
I can put up the
Would
original.
you get it?
You wanna, which one do you wanna see?
Right here.
75, I think page 75, is it? Like, right there.
Okay, that's the original subdivision.
Yeah. So the wetlands, did you do those? Or did your company do those?
Mark Hampton did the wetlands for this project.
Okay. What company?
This one or the earlier one?
I'm not sure who did the original wetlands, but Mark Hampton, they were done more than 5 years ago, so
Yep.
we have to redo them. So they were done for the 10-acre parcel that the four new lots are going on.
It says James Logan did the original ones. Note number 3.
James Logan.
Oh, I'm sorry, it says lot 1. Oh, Daniel Colby did the original one.
Yeah, Colby's the one.
But you've done an update on those,
On-
on 10 acres, the 4 lots, you have a new report
Correct.
specific to those 4 lots.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm sorry to ask you, but is this Mark guy, is he with a company or is he
It's
solo?
Solo's, Mark Hampton Associates is the
Okay.
name of his company.
Okay. I ask because, we can talk about this later, but you'll see that the delineation that was done before is, there's some changes done. I mean, seasonal, it's been 6 years since it was done, but I just point that out, that there's differences there.
Yeah, in fact, we are anticipating some wetland impacts with the new road. The permit going to DEP would include any wetland impacts that were done previously, so the cumulative impact would be permitted.
Oh, the previous impacts?
Yeah, they don't, they exempt up to 4,300 square feet,
Yes,
but if you do any more, you have to account for those.
in that area or in the project, in the subdivision?
In the
or-
subdivision.
Oh, okay. How many square feet?
I don't
Are you
know.
over 4,300?
Yes, probably.
Okay. Interesting.
So these are good questions that you gotta answer when we get to the,
Sorry, yeah.
no, these are good questions. Part of what we want, or the biggest part we want to do today is tell you what the questions and concerns are, so that when next time we see you, you can answer all this kind of stuff.
I mean, it's telling us where generally the location of the additional 4 is, but there's no indication of where the road will be coming in off from Ruby Lane to those 4.
So,
I think the other one did.
so this is the 10-acre piece.
Right.
The road is coming in, as somebody said, basically across from this lot line between lots 1 and 2, coming into the site.
Because isn't there an existing woodlot road there right now?
Likely, yes.
Yeah, okay.
If that's what it is.
Because I go check that out on a regular basis. how they're doing.
I drove it the other day. Anything else?
So there were, let's see, 8 permitted before?
13.
No, I mean, sorry, 13 total. How many are built, or how many are?
Mike told me he's got 6 are completed. 6 are completed, 1's under construction. And he expects the complete build out of those 13 in the next 2 years.
Okay, and, is it, I know 13, over 13 requires site law, is that right? And,
Yes, and
but,
that's why, yes, typically, anything over 14 requires a site location. However, if you do 13 or 14 and wait 5
I
years,
see,
that
right,
you're exempt from that requirement.
got it, okay.
And as I mistyped the approval date in my cover letter, it was actually 18.
Yep.
So we would not be seeking final approval at the earliest, December of this year to meet that 5 years.
signs for trash pickup on Ruby Lane? Is it
It's right
private?
up to the curb.
And so we'd be adding 4 more sites to the curb?
Well, that's a discussion we
One
probably.
one of the, one of the concerns that's coming up is our current waste recycling hauler is Casella. And they have spoken with the selectmen, and they say probably when the contract runs out in June, I believe it is, that they're 18 months to 2 years out of purchasing new vehicles, which will all be mechanical. There won't be any guys on the back of the trucks. And purchasing, right, they're gonna go with these arms that wrap around the 64-gallon containers that will be provided. And they're looking at providing 2 64-gallon containers to each household. So my concern, seeing something like this, is, and they have to be 3 feet apart, so the arm can reach around. I don't know what the requirement is for a road that is not town approved, whether that has anything to do with it, what Casella actually allows. But if you had 12 and you got another 4, it's not conceivable to have those out at the curb.
Just a question is, so they would not drive down Ruby Lane?
I think that's to be determined right now.
That's to be, yeah, and I don't know what what Casella's policy is on that. I have no idea.
So if they don't, they would expect people in lot 7 and 8, or 13 and 14, 13 and 12 to bring their trash cans all the way out to,
Well, how is
Swamp
it going
Road.
now? How
Well,
is it
what I
gonna
see
be
now,
done
when I drive by on the Friday or Thursday, they're all at the curb.
and it might be because the road is not paved yet?
Well, that's a whole
It's
other
possible.
discussion, yes.
So, but no, it's a good point.
But it's a concern.
Yep.
And I think that as we get into your approvals, that's one, the point is, what are you gonna do about trash?
I mean, if, my concern, if I was a developer, would be, okay, if we have a contract with a trash collector that he's not gonna go in on roads, do I have to have a staging area that's gonna accommodate all of his trash cans? I don't know. It's just an open discussion, and it sounds
Sure.
like, to me, it's something that Casella really needs to answer. Will they go in on roads? But it's something
I can certainly follow up on that with,
It's always part of the discussion, what are you going to do, and it's aggravated or changed because of what they're talking about now.
and part of it may be just talking with the town manager here, and has he had that discussion with Casella? He may have had. I don't know if there's anything in their existing contract or anything else either. The real issue becomes during the winter when you're plowing, if you've got 36 containers in one area.
right,
It's probably easier for the hauler to do that, but it's not, as a resident,
And-
you're not receptive to
well,
do
also
that.
a truck sitting on Swamp Road loading that many containers
Dangerous.
just is a delay for
Yeah.
motorists, coming through.
So that's one that will hit you up with them, which, tagging into that, one of the questions about Casella or future is the conditioning of the existing road. And I would suggest that the condition, which is, you have to use the existing road to get to the new lots. And I have heard, the question I would have when we come back is, twofold, is when are you gonna fill the potholes? It's getting, even my brand new truck, it was a tough drive the other day.
Where's the truck again?
They didn't put it forward, but that is a concern, is what, and then the other question is, what, do you have bond and escrow, so what do you, guarantee, do you have to finish the original subdivision?
Yeah, so I did ask Mike that question, so he is bonded, for the road, and he intends to pave it this fall.
Okay, that's even better.
Can I just follow up on that, because, according to the town records, in condition number 4 of approval on the original subdivision plan required that the applicant developer provide a performance bond for paving of the road after the 4th, as a condition for the occupancy permit of the 4th lot in the subdivision. In 2020, Mr. Kopp submitted a performance bond for $109,000, which I'm assuming would be the cost of paving. However, it gave a 1-year time limit for that bond, and that road is not paved and it's long past the 1 year. So currently, it appears that there is no performance guarantee currently in effect. Now, if Mr. Kopp has a more updated performance bond that has been submitted, then I just couldn't find it in our records, that's a possibility. But at this point, it does not appear that there is an active performance guarantee for any of that road construction.
I'll bring that up with Mike.
And it's good to know that there is a plan to pave it this fall, but that was one of the concerns I had going forward. And then the other one is on your, we talked about the wetlands. You wanna make sure that when you come in on those 4 lots, that you show where the entrance roads off the drive are, because there's choke points with wetlands on various lots. And so how are you going to get in there? What if any obviously we don't wanna have any, but what if any disturbance? And then how are you gonna site the house so does not impact the wetlands on each lot?
Maybe I can address that, but the woods roads that you mentioned, there are some existing culverts connecting the existing wetlands. That's where we intend to put the driveways to cross those, so that we're not impacting additional wetlands with the driveways. The siding of the house, we have 40,000 square feet of contiguous area. We can show a rough location, but as long as Mike's within that.
Can you show up on there where you would be putting them? I'll get that one up.
Well, I think, yes, especially when you get back, when you come in with, I think what we're asking for is show us, kind of where those houses would fit on there. And I don't wanna relive the past, but I do believe there was maybe an issue a couple of years ago where the surveyor probably, didn't survey it properly and ended up in the wetlands. So we just wanna, if that's clear on the plans this time, then good for you, but.
So this double line here is a culvert, basically connecting this wetland to this wetland. There's another one here, so the driveway for lot 1 is intended to come off of Ruby Lane. The driveway for lot 2 is intended to come, off Ruby Lane extension and cross this culvert.
Okay.
Driveway for lot 3 also intended to come off Ruby Lane extension and cross the culvert without impacting wetlands. And lot 4 is come off the Hammerhead or wherever the town will allow on that frontage to.
Just wanna make sure that's clear to who's ever digging ditches and putting in staking the lot and all that other stuff that, how do you tend to protect, you show a proposed house lot, that helps, I guess.
Yeah, and what happened on lot 1 on the opposite side is similar situation like this. And if I can get it, okay, so what happened was, here you see a similar situation where this was all wetland here. And if this house had been sited here or back here, and they ended up filling this wetland, which then required, and these as well, that required the Army Corps after the fact permits. So I think that's why they're raising that question, to avoid this type of a situation.
That can't be extension, I don't think that.
One question, did they pick up a stream? Right, the first one, you mentioned the culvert right there?
Yeah, no streams.
Does that culvert go all the way through?
No, I think the wetlands have changed, so it was a woods road with a culvert connecting to, I don't know if the wetlands ever connected to the mouth of the
And you'll
culvert.
submit the new wetlands, study with,
Yes.
with the final, the preliminary. I mean, those are the concerns that I have, I think, is those, the original road, condition of the original road, and then making sure we define what's going where on those lots, so we don't inadvertently, and I'm not saying exact, go out there and pin the lots now, but, yeah, what I'm talking about, go out there,
Front and back
the
pins.
lots, no, I'm sorry, but the house pins.
We'll also need a name for that, street.
Yes, yeah, Mike had a road name in mind, but it was already taken in town, so this was the last minute.
Yeah, that's fine.
I have a couple thoughts for the board, questions. So based on previous history, what we just talked about, regarding the wetlands and stuff, and that it's September right now, I recommend two things. One thing is, peer reviewer, right? I would, and I know it's early, we just started talking about this, but we're not gonna be able to, no one's gonna be able to look at this in the winter, right? The ground's gonna be frozen. So we might, one, wanna do a site visit early on, like before we can't do a site visit, and two, possibly think about bringing a peer reviewer on early on as well. So that, we can get a realistic look at the ground, everything.
Well, I think, yes, one of the great minds think alike, I think we do need to schedule a site, I'm not thrilled about doing this in January, or
Right.
you need to change your vote about my staying on the board. And, but, yeah, so, the next few weeks, schedule that while it's still doable. And then, I guess probably need to see the wetlands, I don't think we have anything to peer review at this point.
I guess,
other
yeah.
than
Yeah, so do I need to make an application before we can schedule a sidewalk, or can you schedule a sidewalk beforehand?
We
Okay.
can do that this evening,
Yeah.
to go ahead and do that, so. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah.
And so before we leave, we can pick a date in the next few weeks that work for, and if you can't get, I know Mike, I think he's out sick today, he said. So get back to us on if we got dates that we can propose. It's probably easier to start with us and then try to get
Sure.
you all to do that. So are there any other comments about the sketch plan?
George, are the meeting minutes from the previous approval on the interweb?
I've not found any, they're probably here buried in some pile of minutes from those meetings, is that what you're talking about, prior meetings?
2018 approval.
I think it says if you wanna see something like that, you have to come to the town office.
Right, and the records here, over the rotating code officers are just a nightmare. So, I mean, I sorted through this more recent one, but, I'm not sure about minutes for those meetings. Can I also just point out, as I kind of talked about in the, sketch plan notes, so the purpose of this meeting is to make sure when the applicant comes, everybody's on the same page. So, one issue to clarify is that the original subdivision was approved under the old ordinances. And there's been a major overhaul in the standards for construction and the procedures. So I would urge you to look carefully through the current ordinance. And this extension of the original subdivision must meet all requirements procedurally and performance standards for the current ordinance, not what was previously approved. And the procedures that we've adopted are really holding everybody to the current ordinance. Now, there is flexibility, and so, for example, this issue of you have a subdivision that's not completed without a performance bond, that can happen under this ordinance. It has happened in the past on multiple occasions. I've been trying to help the board get those things tightened up. So, there is flexibility for this 700-foot extension. Your client may want to look at the conditional approval provision, which says he doesn't have to put up any performance guarantee for the full construction of this road. He has a condition that says he can't sell any lots or get any building permits until the road is completed, and then just erosion and sedimentation control does need to be bonded. So there's flexibility in there, but we're really trying to get accountability at all stages of this. Same thing with peer reviews of the engineering. We would wait until we get the engineering submissions. They just do a spot check typically of the work that's been submitted, and the applicant does cover those costs. But if you do a thorough plan preparation, those costs are relatively minimal. And then similarly for inspections, the town is no longer gonna rely on a code officer or a road commissioner who are not engineers to go out and do inspections, so there is an inspection fee. So it's somewhat burdensome from some developers' perspectives, but what we've really seen, my experience over 40 years, as you know, Rick, I've been doing this in other towns, is that if you have very stringent requirements, but very clear requirements and reasonable common sense with accountability, the projects go much quicker, and time is money, and you don't end up going out and rebuilding what you've already built because it doesn't meet the standards. And there was another project where that developer learned the hard way here in Durham, that that's not a good way to do business. So we'll be working with you to make sure that this meets all standards of the requirements.
So a couple questions on that. So the road currently, the existing road is not finished. Or not even paved, any of it. So, and we are looking at an extension of that road that isn't done yet. So, I mean.
And that may be okay if everything is following the ordinance in terms of bonding and performance guarantees. So what we would try to do is, look, what's done in the past was done, good, bad, or indifferent. But we want to make sure that at least there's a stable base, both legally as well as physically out there. And that what we're gonna do in expanding it meets everything, and try to get it all done and move forward.
But should we be kind of harder on requiring that base road to be done sooner?
Well, I think we should know what the status of it is.
Yeah.
First, from an engineering standpoint, as well as a construction and performance guarantee standpoint. So the applicant should come in, really settle what exactly is the status out there in all these regards, and then get an agreement that we can move forward quickly because that's been resolved and the new plan is gonna follow the ordinance.
And the new construction of the old road is based on the old design?
Yes.
Not
And the
old-
design of the road hasn't changed, it's just what were the accountability provisions, which were pretty non-existent or not enforced in the past. They will be enforced going forward.
I also think what Brian brought up is a good point as far as the back data, the back info that we heard. I think there was quite a bit done on this subdivision, like, I can't remember quite, but any studies or consultation with agencies that might benefit us during this round.
The only in-depth ones that I've seen, because this goes back to like 2017, they were the typical wetland evaluations, but the Lot 1 analysis was really, because they had, after the fact filling of wetlands, there's a long Army Corps analysis and everything in there, so that's.
Yeah, it might be good to try and go through that somehow.
Well,
Try and,
originally,
you know.
when this was approved, it was when we still had a growth zone within town. And this was right at the border. This was included in part of the growth zone. And that's one of the things that was questionable of approval of it. But then shortly after that, the growth zone was reviewed. So, there were different requirements when something was in growth zone or not. Anyway, that's a little bit downward.
Good way to put it. So I think, are there any other comments that we can give them to help them prepare their, what's next step, preliminary?
Yep.
So,
And you
Is
want
this
us-
the only plan you have? Is there
No, this is the only,
That's the only option.
I may have a preliminary profile of the road, but no alternate concepts that you're asking?
Yeah, exactly. Yes,
No,
right.
no. Based on the extent of the wetlands and trying to get that frontage, and those contiguous areas, this is the only plan that kind of makes sense.
So you didn't look at trying to stay away from the wetlands altogether and reducing the amount of lots?
No. Short answer, no.
Okay, anything else that,
Well, a question, what about stormwater? It'll be finalized later, but any, like, ideas right now, you're gonna need any sort of facilities to manage? Stormwater.
Constructed practices, no.
Yeah.
Typically on something, a small residential or a small impervious area, buffering is the ideal way to treat the stormwater.
Okay.
I don't know if your ordinance requires,
We follow DEP.
so we would do a stormwater analysis for peak rates of runoff.
Yep.
But again, on a small site, you're really not running into, you're not covering the whole thing with impervious, you're not jacking up runoff rates, so it's relatively easy to meet those peak rates on a smaller residential scale site.
and you'll show us all that stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And it'll be peer reviewed.
Yeah.
And then,
You ought to talk to the chief, fire chief, about, I don't wanna assume, but the original houses may be sprinklered. And so you need to get with the fire chief about potential for ponds or not.
The original ones, there was a sprinkler condition.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, this issue of the development of the planning program for the town. In the past, the planning board and prior fire chiefs pretty much accepted that if there was a fire water protection source within a mile of the subdivision and they put in sprinklers, that was acceptable. The new ordinance clearly spells out there must be an on-site water supply. And the volume of that, which can either be in the form of a underground cistern, storage container, or a fire pond, the volume can be reduced, but it can't be entirely eliminated, even if you do use sprinklers. So whether these 4 lots, you will require something on site or not, is, that's something to consider. But when this subdivision was approved, that is part of the subdivision record. The fire chief in 2016, I think it was, they basically issued a policy of if there's a water protection source within a mile, then sprinklers were adequate. But we've adopted a new ordinance since then. And there is also, let me just finally say, there is a provision for granting of procedural and waiver of standards with justification that you can apply for.
So when you come in, have all the waivers lined out that you're asking for, if any. Anything else?
very good, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Appreciate your
Sitting
Oh,
around.
do you wanna talk about a potential site visit?
Oh, yes. If somebody could look at that, everybody look at their calendars, thank you, to that, and say, in the next few weeks, what's a good date for?
Let's do it before that. Can we do it before October?
This is supposed to be fun.
The meeting's supposed to be going?
No, the last one.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, Judy, I'm waiting for my calendar.
Can we do it like, the second to last week of September or the last week of September? Like before our next meeting?
End of September is fine with me.
I'll be away the last week of September, but you folks can do the site work.
We'll miss you.
And what do you typically need for the sidewalk? Do you need the road staked? Do you need what?
No, just kind of, if you just kind of say the road's gonna do this, you know, it's gonna be within these parameters, here's the wetlands, here's, you know, this is roughly where lot one will be, lot two.
Sure.
Or where the number.
Actually, stakes along the center line of the road would be a good reference point for the whole discussion.
It would be.
Would be very helpful.
Yeah,
It doesn't
it would.
need
We
to
just
be
never
there.
had that before.
Yeah, right.
We'll do another visit too later on.
My first ever sidewalk at Bowie Hill was just trampsing through the
Oh,
woods.
it
Yeah.
was, it was, had no idea where that road was.
Okay, I'm sorry, so the 27th we're looking at, the 20th, what, well,
If we want George here, the 20th or that week.
I could do the 20th.
it doesn't necessarily, I don't think, have to be Wednesday.
I can't do Tuesdays, Tuesdays are bad.
The 20th would be ideal, because I'll be here for the Conservation Commission meeting.
Okay. Does that work for you? Yeah.
Works for me.
You know?
What time?
It's starting to get late, 5:30, is that doable?
5:30 is
And then
great.
you've got, what time is your meeting?
6:30.
6:30, so we should be maybe a few minutes late.
You shoot for 5,
Wanna go- wanna go
5:30.
5 o'clock.
We go to 5, I'm good with 5, is that?
Yeah.
works for
I
you?
can make that work.
Okay, the 20th, what do you say, the 20th at 5?
Sunset
you
is
would-
at 7:30, so we're.
If you would check with, we don't need everybody, so I mean, if it's you, or if it's the, Mr. Kopp, or it's somebody else, who there's somebody who's familiar enough with the project
Yep.
that can answer questions like you did tonight,
Sure.
okay?
Well, again, thank you for your time.
Thank you for your patience.
Well, it was fun. It wasn't as contentious as I've experienced in the past.
If you have a contentious sketch plan, it's probably not worth coming back.
No, I meant the one before, the RV park was not as contentious as I was thinking you guys were
Well,
making it out to be.
yeah, we can have it contentious for you guys, don't worry about it. We'll get there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the 20th at 5 p.m. Meet on site then?
Okay, I'm gonna go shut it down if you want to adjourn.
Oh, yes, motion.
I'll say.
With, all in favor, we are adjourned. Thank you all for your time.
I hope you've gotten really good at recording your Cubs games.
They won earlier today.
Oh.
They're kicking ass and taking names. They are surprisingly. I lived through 1969 when they were 9 games up at the beginning of September and lost the division by like 3 games.